Hello, welcome back to Spellbound. I'm BJ the Book Witch, and this is my spooky season reading wrap-up. So it's been a while since I've done a reading wrap-up, and I've read a lot. I hit my Goodreads goal back in July, and I've been mood reading ever since. So for this video, I'm going to look back on what I've read since the summer and pull out the creepy, the spooky, the unsettling, some horror, some thriller, and some witchy books that I've read over the past few months. So let's get started. Cackle by Rachel Harrison. After a breakup from her boyfriend of almost 10 years, 30-year-old Annie moves out of their apartment, well, she's kind of kicked out, and moves to a cozy town in upstate New York. There, she meets the mysterious and alluring Sophie, this ageless woman who is completely unapologetic and embracing both the positive and negative aspects of herself. And slowly, Annie learns to see herself through her own eyes, even if most of the town is pretty concerned about Sophie's influence on her. 4 stars. This is a delightful, cozy novel. It's like a witchy exploration into the manic pixie dream girl trope, except removing the male gaze entirely, and if that manic pixie dream girl was an old crone. Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. 10 years ago, Laurel's daughter, her golden girl Ellie, disappeared. Now she's trying desperately to move on with her life when she meets a charismatic stranger in a cafe. He introduces Laurel to his young daughter, and suddenly the questions and coincidences just start piling up. What happened to Ellie? Where did she go, and why does this young girl seem to have all the answers? 3 stars. So I read this book for a work book club that caters primarily to thrillers. And I had a few issues with this book. Chief among them, it doesn't feel like a thriller. We find out what happens to Ellie like 60 to 70% of the way through the book, so the real thrill of this novel comes from the dramatic irony of when and how Laurel will discover the truth. It was well written, and Jewell writes these creepy and unsettling characters really well. But the story overall wasn't creepy or unsettling. It was a sometimes sad, sometimes violent, true crime-ish story that tried, I thought, too hard to button up into a happy ending, so I didn't love it. It Will End Like This by Kyra Leigh. This is an interesting and fast-paced YA retelling of the Lizzie Borden axe murders. So you're probably familiar with the nursery rhyme, Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she'd seen what she had done, she gave her father 41. Personally, I think the very best retelling or adaptation of this nursery rhyme is done in an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, in his first season, I believe. But anyway, I was kind of torn on this one, and I gave it 3.5 stars. While the dreamlike tone and unreliable narrators built an infinite loop of haze and confusion that made the climax feel absolutely inevitable, they also worked to make the plot feel overly simplified and sometimes repetitive. So these two mentally unstable teenage girls fed off of each other's madness, and it created a sort of literary particle accelerator that was very cool to read. And while that escalated and marched us toward this conclusion in a way that felt positively epic, it also dulled the edges around the climax, meaning there wasn't much room for subtlety or subplots or depth, and made the plot overall feel pretty shallow. Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. A man recalls the seemingly unrelated, bizarre, horrific, and tragic events that have shaped his childhood in an attempt to understand them. Beginning with only fragments from his earliest years, you'll follow the narrator as he discovers that these horrific events are actually part of a singular story that has shaped the entirety of his life. 4.5 stars. This is easily the most chilling story I've ever read. And this is a really great example of dramatic irony working in favor of the thriller, where you as the reader are aware of the danger that is lurking just off the edge of the page, and you're watching the main character, a child, as he moves throughout his world and the woods in his childhood, completely oblivious to the very real dangers lurking so close. If you want to get spooked and stay spooked, this one is for you. Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker. This is an adorable graphic novel about old friends reconnecting again and battling a bound demon in the forest. 4 stars. For me, I found this book to be kind of a collection of really enjoyable elements. So I thought the characters were very charming, the art is gorgeous, and the tone and vibes of this book are really cozy. While I didn't find the narrative to be particularly compelling, I still really did enjoy this book. The Cousins by Karen McManus. Cousins Millie, Aubrey, and Jonah have never met, and they've definitely never met their estranged grandmother who disinherited their parents almost 25 years ago. So when they receive a mysterious invitation from their grandmother inviting them back home for the summer, the cousins must work together to unravel their parents' mysterious past and uncover secrets that have been buried for far too long. 4 stars. This was a very fun mystery to solve. It felt like watching a YA episode of Murder, She Wrote. It was a good read and a good time. Doll Bones by Holly Black. First of all, Holly Black. This one is about 3 friends who set out on a quest to bury a haunted doll that they've always referred to as the Queen, and together they discover the chilling truth about the Queen's past. 5 stars. This is an incredible story about what it feels like to know you're growing up. Black is a masterful storyteller, and the themes of this book fit right alongside The Halloween Moon by Joseph Fink, which is another amazing 5-star middle grade. Leah and Beckett's Abracadabra by Amy Noelle Parks. Leah receives a mysterious invitation from her missing grandmother, inviting her to compete in a summer magic competition with one single piece of advice: stay away from the Blackwell boys. But when Leah realizes that teaming up with Beckett, a Blackwell cousin, is her best chance at winning, Leah decides she may need to rethink her grandmother's advice. 5 stars. This book was excellent start to finish. This is the kind of YA character that I'm glad that middle grade readers and YA readers have the chance to experience. This was a bold, head-on approach to gender equality without once losing the levity and lighthearted tone of the book. The Children of Red Peak by Craig DiLouie. 3 lone survivors of a cult's mass suicide reunite to confront their dark past. This was an incredibly expansive psychological horror that attempts to put trauma and grief processing in conversation with the omniscience of the divine. I gave it 3 stars. Overall, I'm unsettled and uncomfortable, so as far as thrillers go, I guess it did its job. But I did not vibe with the book's position on the definition of love and its relationship to sacrifice. The Monster of Elendhaven by Jennifer Giesbrecht. This is a very creepy, atmospheric story about the lengths one will go to for revenge and how much farther they'll go to justify it. A true monster story covered in blood and violence. I gave it 4 stars. In my opinion, you've got to approach this book like you would romantic literature, like you would Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or The Suicide Club, because this book is written in much the same way. So instead of entering this book and trying to immediately connect with a character and their point of view to understand the story or their lens of the story, I would recommend instead trying to create some distance between you and the sympathy of the characters. So just sitting back, watching the story unfold and enjoy the ride. It is a bloodbath, but it is a good time. The Ghost Tree by Christina Henry. When the bodies of 2 girls are found torn apart in the woods of this small town, Lauren is not surprised. But she also expects that the police won't find the killer because, after all, the year before, her father was found with his heart missing and everyone has already moved on. And when Lauren has a vision of a monster dragging the remains of these girls through the woods, she knows she can't just do nothing. But as she draws closer to answers, she discovers that the foundation of her seemingly normal town might be rotten at the center, and if no one else will stand for the missing, she will. Easy 5 stars. Okay, so everything that I just said about how to approach the Monster of Elendhaven, do the exact opposite for this story. Christina Henry, first of all, is relentless in her writing. She drags you by the throat from the very first page all the way to the conclusion, and her characters are incredibly compelling. You want to get into the mind of every single character in the story and understand their perspective. This book, while being an incredibly creepy story all on its own, also covers some pretty intense topics like racism and xenophobia, the burden of growing up and budding sexuality, the complicated relationship between mothers and daughters, and the ostracizing of independent women. It's a great read. Improbable Magic for Cynical Witches by Kate Scelsa. This is a witchy, atmospheric, lesbian contemporary YA romance set in Salem. The premise is that 17-year-old Eleanor is cynical and might be the only person in Salem who doesn't believe in witchcraft or magic. But when a mysterious handwritten guide to tarot shows up at the souvenir shop where she works, and when an even more mysterious girl named Pix shows up with an unusual invitation, Eleanor starts to rethink her position. This is a cute YA story about recovering from first love and learning to embrace new experiences. 3.5 stars. Personally, I found everything except for the characters in this story to be really charming. For example, I love Salem. We went there a few years ago over Halloween for our haunted honeymoon, and it was really neat to read about all of the landmarks and stores, shops, and streets that we visited during that special week. And you could tell that Scelsa had put a lot of research and love into writing all of the elements and fringes of this story, from Salem to even the chronic illness representation of Eleanor's mom. Unfortunately, though, we didn't dwell in those places for very long. We spent much of this book trapped inside Eleanor's head as the narrator, and I personally can't vibe with a self-loathing narrator. That makes it very difficult for me to enjoy the other elements that were really present in this book. So it's a 3.5 stars for me. Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. What a book for Halloween. Just look at this cover. Halloween 1963. They call him the October Boy, or Sawtooth Jack, or Old Hacksaw Face. Whatever his name, everyone in this small Midwestern town knows who he is, and how he rises from the cornfields every Halloween, butcher knife in hand, and makes his way toward town, where gangs of teenage boys eagerly await their chance to confront this legendary nightmare. Both the hunter and the hunted, the October Boy is the prize in this annual rite of life and death. Peter McCormick knows that killing the October Boy is his one chance to escape a dead-end future in this one-horse town, and he's willing to risk everything, including his life, to be a winner for once. But before the night is over, Pete will look into the sawtooth face of horror and discover the terrifying true secret of the October Boy. 4 stars. Caught between an extended short story and a novella, this horror book is perfect for fans of Ray Bradbury's The October Country. This dark and violent tale is gripping and gritty and fast-paced. Though inconsistent narration and some pretty clunky imagery clutter the book, the tale itself weaves this really unsettling atmosphere that lingers long after the final page. House of Hollow by Krystal Sutherland. This book follows Iris Hollow, who has always been strange. Ever since she and her 2 sisters disappeared when they were children, their strangeness has followed them around like unsheddable cloaks. Their hair turned snow white, their eyes turned coal black, and they've just become like irresistibly beautiful. Iris's older sisters left home when they were in their late teenage years to live full lives and travel the world, until one day when Iris's eldest sister, Gray, vanishes without a trace. Suddenly, Iris is thrust into a chase to find her sister and outrun a mysterious horned man who leaves death and decay in his wake. As Iris follows the breadcrumbs toward her sister, she discovers the terrible truth about their past. 4.5 stars. This book has all the elements: liminal spaces, doors to faraway places, the rot beneath enchantment, and the shackling bond of eternal sisterhood. And it's a great read. And finally, Take Your Turn, Teddy by Hayley Newlin. After witnessing a traumatic event, Teddy discovers a disembodied shadow in the basement of their new home. What starts as small games between friends turns into a large, terrible competition between Teddy and the shadow as they feed on the pain and death of those around them. 3.5 stars. This was a gripping horror story for sure. Unfortunately, though, the narration of this story waffled between the very compelling narration of the child Teddy and the slow-paced, self-loathing narration of the hallucinating cop who follows their trail. So that's 15 spooky, creepy, chilling books that you can read the next time that you want to feel thoroughly unsettled. If you've read any of these, or if you picked up a really great creepy book at all over the past spooky season, please let me know in the comments. I would really love to hear from you. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you loved it, hit subscribe. Take care, and as always, happy reading.